Welcome to episode 16 of the Catherine Crochets podcast. My name's Catherine and I'm a crochet designer from South London in the UK, and welcome to my podcast where I talk about all the recent crochet projects that I've been working on. You can find me on Instagram at Catherine Crochets and also on Facebook. I have a web page and an email list that you can sign up to if you'd like to. I'll pop the link in the description below. I send out news whenever I release a new pattern and a discount code for my email list subscribers that is larger than one that I release publicly, so you get a better discount if you're on my email list. You also get 2 free patterns if you sign up to my email list, which is a new thing since I last podcasted. It's new in the last few months. And recently I've also been sending out a monthly newsletter to my email list subscribers about just with a roundup of all the things that have been going on that month. So pattern releases, new blog posts that might be interesting, and although I haven't podcast recently, if there is a new podcast then I'll also mention that in the newsletter as well. So this one will be mentioned in the next newsletter at the end of August. I'm also on Pinterest and obviously here on YouTube, so in a few different places all over the web. If you want to find me in any of those locations, I'll pop a link below. The last time I podcast was back in March. I was just checking, and so over 4 months ago now, because it's the end of July now. It's Saturday the 30th of July today. So I got out of the habit, and then it always takes a while to get back into the habit of podcasting again whenever you have a little break, I find. And life has just got really busy, and it does take quite a while. The filming, not so much, but then it's afterwards all the editing and uploading that takes time. So it is a good few hours to film and release podcasts. So just didn't quite manage to find the time to do that. But got back into watching a few more podcasts again recently, and that sort of inspired me to sit down and have a film. So here I am today with a roundup of what I've been getting up to over the last few months. There are quite a few things obviously that I've done since it's been 4 months since the last podcast, but I won't talk about absolutely everything, but just the sort of main big highlights to share with you. So one thing I was talking about quite a lot in definitely the last podcast, I think, and I've mentioned it more than once in previous podcasts. So if you have been watching and wondering, probably not, you've probably forgotten all about it, but here's a little update on the jumpers that I was making for my girls. So I had been working on a Juniper jumper for my older daughter, and that is now finished, and I was really pleased with how it turned out. It is such a gorgeous, fun, I think it's quite a modern looking crochet jumper. The pattern calls for bubbles on the sleeves, but I decided not to bubble the sleeves, partly to save time and partly because I think it didn't necessarily need the bubbles on the sleeves. She's nearly 12, and I thought all the bubbles all over might be overdoing it a little bit. And also because they're cream bubbles, I thought the ones on the sleeves might rub and turn grey and just get a bit more dusty and whatever. So this took a long time because it's all made with the rows are all double crochet or single crochet in US terms. So it did take quite a long time to work up, but it does mean it's quite a nice thick cozy jumper. But part of the sort of dilemma I was having was that I didn't want to give it to her until I also had a jumper made for my other daughter as well, so I wanted to give them both a jumper at the same time. And I think last time, I should have checked, I can't remember if I'd finished this last time or not, but I was definitely pretty close, and I'd started thinking about what jumper I was going to make for my other daughter, and I decided to go for a different pattern. And I'm pleased I did, because it turned out the pattern I chose was much quicker to work up, so I was able to finish it off quite quickly, and I could make it with yarn from my stash as well. So I made, I'm showing you the back, I think, yeah, it's not much difference, but it's just the join goes down the back of each round. So the pattern I made, it's called the Confetti DK Kids Jumper. It's from Nomad Stitches. I'll put links to all of the patterns that I mention in the comments underneath if you want to look them out. So this I was really pleased with because it worked out really quickly. It's made with moss stitch, so it's not as dense. The stitches aren't as dense as the other one. So, and I could also manage to make it completely with yarn from my stash, and I'm quite pleased with how those three colours go together. And I managed to get them both finished just before Easter, so I gave them to the girls for Easter presents, which was early April, middle of April sometime this year. And there were still a few cold enough days that they managed to wear them a few times before the weather just got a bit hot for them, so they're not really being worn at all at the moment because it's summertime and it's quite warm. But hopefully they'll get them out again in the autumn and will enjoy wearing them. They seemed really pleased with them, and there was definitely room in both of them for growing. So hopefully, especially the confetti one, because I think both jumpers ended up pretty much the same size, and this is for my younger daughter, so she should be able to wear that for quite a while. The sleeves on that one ended up a bit longer than they perhaps should have been, so I've been folding up the cuff for her on those. But other than that, I was really happy with those, and good to get them out the way finally, because the Juniper jumper, the grey one with the bubbles, had been going on for a very long time. Yeah, so I was really pleased to finish those off. Then another project I'd been showing you was a new blanket that I was making out of crochet tiles, a tapestry crochet design, and that, I don't know if it had a name last time I talked about it, but I probably didn't, because I don't often name my designs until right at the end. I always find coming up with a name one of the hardest parts. But that is now finished and all the squares are joined. It's quite big, so I probably won't be able to show all of it, but I might try and put in some photos so you can get a better sense of the whole thing. But I called it the Hestia Blanket because Hestia is, I didn't know this before, but I did a bit of Googling. Hestia is the Greek goddess of the hearth, and she's responsible for looking after the home, I think. So I thought, well, a blanket is obviously something nice to add to your home, and it looks after the people in your home, keeping them warm. And also the colours that I'd used, all the reds and oranges, quite a few people said it reminded them of firecrackers, or I guess they meant what we'd call fireworks, I'm not sure. But obviously a hearth has a fire in it, and it's got quite fiery colours in it, so that was another sort of reason why I went for the name Hestia for it. So yeah, you can't really see the whole thing in one go. I'll just disappear behind it for a minute while I lift the whole thing up. But what it's got is 3 of these big squares, 3 rows of 3, 9 of these big squares, which are made set individually and then joined in the middle in a 3x3 arrangement. And then they've got, this is the sort of biggest and fanciest border I've ever made, around the edge they've got this border. So it starts with the row of this rusty colour, then it's got these shapes which are exactly the same shape as this shape here in the square, so it sort of continues that that shape into the border, 2 rows of that, another row of the pale rust, and then finished off with the blue again. And the first time I've done it is that I varied the colours from square to square, so they're not all the same colours. It was a bit hard, I think, because of the number of colours and the number of squares. It was tricky working out like the arrangement and what colours to put where. But yeah, they're all different. You wouldn't have to do that, obviously. If you made the blanket, you could make them all the same. It's completely up to you. But yeah, this pattern is the Hestia Blanket, and it is now released, and it's available on Etsy and Ravelry and Love Crafts, which is where you can find all my patterns. It's made with Shapey's Katona yarn, which is a cotton yarn. I think it's 4-ply, and it used, I can't remember the hook size, I think it might have been a 2.5, but I can't remember. But yeah, I was really pleased with how this one turned out. And I think I mentioned before I started, when I chose the yarns for it, I wanted to try a warmer colour palette to what I normally use. I normally use blues and bluey greens and navies and teals and that sort of colour. And I don't often use reds and rusts and yellows in my work. So I was quite keen to have a go at something with a different colour palette. And so it was really nice for a change to use these colours, but I don't think I'm going to stick with them forever. And I have been lured back to my preferred palette. I think will be something that I do keep going back to, but it was very nice for a change for me to make something in these colours. The wind has just blown the door open, so I'm just going to get up and push it shut again. There we go. So that was released, I can't remember what month it was released now. It might have been May, I think. But yeah, a little while ago. Then the next thing I have to talk to you about is another blanket design. This one is a much smaller blanket, and it was done much more quickly, and I only made it baby blanket size. And main reason for this was because I didn't know how far the yarn was going to go, and I should of course have made a swatch before I started to find out, because I could have made it much bigger, but I didn't. And so it is a very small blanket, but as a consequence it did work out quite quickly. And this is called the Morven Blanket. Here it is. And I made this as part of a challenge that was set by Hobby Yarn, called, I think it's called Here Comes the Sun. So, and I think you could make anything you wanted. I don't think there was a limit on what type of project you could make, but it had to include yellow. So that's why I went for this kind of mustardy colour, and it's made with it's called Rainbow Bamboo, this yarn, and it's a blend of cotton and bamboo, and it is super soft and smooth and really nice to crochet with. Some cotton yarns I find they can split, but this one didn't split at all, and you end up with a really nice soft smooth blanket. And for tapestry crochet, which this blanket has here, I find that the sort of smoothness and lack of fuzziness to the yarn is really nice, because it gives a really good crisp definition to the stitches and to the shapes on the blanket. So it's quite a simple design. It's just got, at each end of the blanket there's a row of, or 3 rows of triangles, alternating triangles, and then in the middle section this bit is all moss stitch. So this is quite a sort of relaxing, repetitive bit to make, and it also then sort of gives it a really nice drape. It's quite light and hangs really nicely. Light's probably not quite the right word, because it's still got a weight to it, but flexibility, that's what I mean. It's not stiff. Yeah, so this is called the Morven Blanket, and the pattern is out now on Etsy, Ravelry and Love Crafts. And although mine is really small, the pattern includes instructions to make it any size you want. So it tells you what number of stitches to put in the repeat, and you can have any multiple of that number of stitches that you want. So it'd be dead simple to make it bigger or even smaller if you preferred. And this yarn is the yarn I use, it's a 4-ply yarn as well, so you could also make the pattern just simply with a thicker yarn like DK or Aran, and obviously then that would make your blanket bigger as well without having to change the pattern at all, just increase the weight of your yarn. So that's the Morven Blanket, which I made it in May, and I released it beginning of July, earlier this month. So that's another finished item. Just have a little drink. Rattling through everything. Got one more finished item, which is also a pattern that's been released to show you, and then I've got 2 works in progress to show you as well that I'm working on at the moment. So the next pattern, the next finished item, is another hobby yarn creation made for another hobby yarn challenge. This one I made in June. Yeah, I made it in June, and the challenge was called the Hobbycation challenge, and it was to make something. It was supposed to be a project that was a small project that you could work on or take with you while you're on holiday, because it's a small project, but I also made something that you can use on holiday. So for the project I made this bag, which is called the Touch the Sky bag, and I made it with the rainbow cotton yarn, which comes in different thicknesses, and I used the 8/8 thickness. Not quite sure what that refers to, but that's the thickest one, and it's equivalent, I think, to DK. Comes in loads of different colours, but I chose navy, white, green, and this sort of corally pink. Again, it's made with tapestry crochet, and yeah, it's the stitch I used to make most of the bag is the extended double crochet stitch, or extended single crochet in US terms. So this, because it was going to be a bag, I didn't want the stitches to be too loose and things to be able to poke through. So because it's using that stitch, it's quite, the fabric is really quite dense, and you can put keys and things in here, what I have, and they've not poked through or anything. So it's a nice thick, dense fabric. And then the handles I'm quite pleased with, because I often find handles on bags are never quite the right length, but I just, as I was making them, I kept trying it out until they were exactly the length I wanted. And obviously you can do that too if you're making a crochet bag like this one. So it hangs at just the right height that I wanted it to hang at. And we went on holiday to Devon earlier this month, just after the girls broke up from school for the summer holidays, and I took this with us and used it pretty much every day. We went to the beach lots. The weather was absolutely brilliant, the best weather we've ever had, I think, on a UK holiday. So we managed it. We could have gone to the beach every single day, I think, which is pretty unique for a UK holiday, to have a proper beach days every day. But we did have one day where we did something different. We went to Agatha Christie's house just to have a break from going to the beach, but otherwise we were at the beach every day, and this bag got lots and lots of use. It also went to Agatha Christie's house as well, and it's got a bit of a sun creamy smell to it now, so it reminds me of all those holidays. But yeah, I'm really pleased with this bag. So this is another pattern that's out. It was released earlier this week on Wednesday, and it's out on Etsy, Ravelry and Love Crafts. There's some noise, something going on outside. There's a church just across the road from us, and I think there might be a wedding going on. It's Saturday afternoon, or Saturday lunchtime really, and it sounds like someone might have just arrived for a wedding. I don't know if you can hear the cheering. Can you hear that? something exciting's happening anyway. Yeah, so this is the Touch the Sky bag, and it is out now if you want to have a go at that. So 2 more things. What should I show you first? I'll show you this one first. So like I was saying earlier, with the Morven Blanket, which was the small baby size blanket that I made, I should have swatched first, and if I had, I would have made a bigger blanket. But because I only made a small blanket, I had lots of this yarn left over. I'd used, I think, less than half of what I had, so I knew I could at least make another blanket the same size with it, and I really liked the colours, so I decided to make another blanket. And this one is slightly bigger, not much, but it is a bit. And I haven't named this one yet, so if you've got any suggestions, let me know, because naming them is always one of the hardest things. Now, because it's work in progress, I've obviously got still attached to the yarn I'm using, so I've got to hold it up a bit more carefully so it doesn't all come undone. But here you go, this is the other blanket that I'm making with exactly the same yarn. This is the Hobby, I've got a few ends I still need to sew in. This is the Hobby Rainbow Bamboo, it's called Cotton and Bamboo Blend. For inspiration for the name, this sort of pattern, it kind of reminds me of like of wheat or corn, you know, like the seeds on the top of it. So I was sort of been looking for names that have something to do with wheat or corn or harvest, and I found one. I can't remember what it is now, I've written it down somewhere, but it's a name which means autumn rain. I think it's autumn rain, which was quite nice, but I can't remember what it was. But that's one name I'm considering for it, because it also, I thought, it sort of looks a little bit like falling raindrops as well. But if you have any ideas for a name for it, let me know. Something else I've set up recently since my last podcast is a dedicated email list for pattern testing. Whenever I did a call out for pattern testers before, I used to do it on Instagram. I think mostly I'd mention it in a post, and then I'd also mention it in my stories. And then I was always really lucky to get a really good response. And I'd have filled all the spots really within usually less than a day. So if some people weren't on Instagram at that time, or even if you are, you're not sure quite what Instagram's going to show you on your feed, some people might have missed it. And to be honest, sorting out testers via Instagram message isn't the easiest way to do it, I found. So I've set up a specific email list for pattern testing. So when I've used it for the last 3 patterns, I think, 2 or 3. So whenever I have a pattern that I'm looking for testers for, I send an email out to that email list with a link to a Google form, and then if anyone is interested in testing it, they can fill in the form. It doesn't ask for much, but it just sort of sets out what the timeline is for the test and what's required, because it's not always to make the whole thing. Sometimes it might just be a bit of it. Anyway, so if anyone's interested, they can fill in the form, and I set like a few days, 2 or 3 days to do it. So by then most people would hopefully have spotted that email, and then they've got a chance to apply if they want to, and they don't have to worry about missing something on Instagram. So I think it's better for testers, and it's much better for me getting it all in Google Forms. Then I can just go through it all and work out who's testing it and who's not. Anyway, all of that is to say that if you were interested in testing this, I'll pop a link in the description below to sign up for the pattern testing email list if you're not already on it, and if you're interested in testing future patterns, you can sign up there, and then you won't miss any call outs for pattern testers if you're interested. So this one, I think I'll probably be, it's not quite finished yet, but it shouldn't be too tricky. It shouldn't take me too long to write up, I don't think, because it's quite straightforward actually. in terms of patterns. So hopefully I'll be able to send a call out for testers maybe in a week or two, something like that anyway. So if you're interested in this, or even if you just want to go on the list in case anything comes up in the future that you'd like to test, then you're very welcome to sign up to that list, which will be in the show notes in the description below. So yeah, this is my work in progress. I think I'm going to just do, it's quite big already, so I'm going to, you can see I've just started, oops, this diamond. So I'm going to finish off the diamond that it's in the middle of at the moment, so it'll go up to about here and then stop, and then I'm going to use the same navy that I used on this blanket as a border to finish it all off. I quite like this one. It's a very simple geometric pattern with all the diamonds, but it's just quite pleasing to look at, I think. Right, I'll just wind this up before I move on to the last thing I have to show you today. Oh, it's getting everywhere. Right, so the very last thing is a project I'm working on just for me. It's not my design, it's making someone else's pattern, and I'm hoping to finish it off ready for sort of September, October, the autumn time. And this is another pattern by Nomad Stitches. So the confetti jumper that I made for my daughter, that was made by her. That was one of her, sorry, not made by her, designed by Nomad Stitches. Sandra, her name is Sandra Gutierrez, I think. And this is a cardigan called the Candelaria cardigan, which I'm making for myself. So I've made, it's top down, so all of this is just made in one piece. So I've got down to the bottom and I'm working on the ribbing around the bottom now. So I'm about halfway round. So on this bottom ribbing, there's a few loose ends to sew in. So I've got to finish off the ribbing around the bottom, then obviously do the sleeves and the cuffs, and then finish off with the ribbing and button band sort of up the sides. So I'll pop it on, show you what it looks like. It's got this really nice, can you see it there? Really nice sort of lace work pattern there. So it's this top row and the bottom row sort of mirror each other. If I move up quite a bit and hold it up there, so that you can see it a bit better against the light background, can't you? Let me pop it on. I'm making this with Drops Nord yarn. I can't remember the name of the colour. I never can remember the names of the colours there. So it's coming down to just there, sort of top of the thigh, which is the length I wanted. I haven't got any buttons for it yet, so I want to put buttons on it down the button band down the front when it's done. But I'll need to choose some. I'm thinking maybe some sort of darkish brown colour, I think would look good with this colour. Yeah, so this is a very me colour. I think probably I use it too much and buy clothes in this colour too much, but I do like it, and I'm looking forward to finishing this off and then being able to wear it this autumn. So that's it for crochet things. That's everything I've got to show you today. I think I've been talking for nearly half an hour now, so that's probably quite a good length. Yeah, I don't have much more to say really, so hopefully I won't leave it so long until my next podcast. It was 4 months next time. I'm not going to promise anything, especially because it's the school holidays here at the moment. One thing I did mean to include, which I totally forgot about when I was making some notes earlier, was that I had included a few times in the podcast some chat about audiobooks and podcasts that I'd been listening to whilst I was crocheting, and there have been a few good ones I've listened to recently, but I totally forgot to go through and note them all down. So rather than just remember them off the top of my head, I'm going to try and do that properly and include that at the end of my next podcast, because I know a few people did comment and said they found that interesting. So next time I will try really hard to remember to include that at the end of the podcast and tell you about what I've been listening to as I've been crocheting. But yeah, I'll try and not leave it so long. Hopefully I'll get one done in August during the school holidays. If not, then probably in September when the girls are back at school. And I hope you all have a wonderful summer or winter, depending on where you are, and that you're enjoying lots of time for crocheting or whatever other crafts you like to do. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I'll see you all again next time. Bye bye.